It seems that if I question Vladimir Zelensky, that all of a sudden I've become this Russian sympathizer and I'm backing them in the war. This bipartisan mindset is why we're here where we are. Not everything has this side and that side. I'm sitting here calling both of those assholes out.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war,
you're not in a good position.
You
don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
$77 billion? You're not doing better than this? Come on, where is all that money? This is a war that we're footing the bill for with no end game, no accountability.
Find the colors, find the light. In the gray, we'll find our sight. Brutal banner, fierce word. Shadows creep, streets look hurt.
Welcome to Stay in the Gray podcast. I'm your host, Ryan, and I'm here to bring you raw conversations about life and those undeniable human truths. We dive into the chaos, one issue at a time, blending comedy, controversy, and the unexplainable. Get ready for transparent ideas straight from the gray areas where most answers are hiding. So stay curious, stay inquisitive, please stay laughing, stay in the gray. Come check it out. We'll see you there. Hey guys, it is March the 10th, 2025. Let's get going. Let's trigger some more people today, shall we? I asked myself, what's the point? Why am I even going to try and talk about these things? Why am I going to try? And then I thought, if I can just get one person who doesn't align with some of these things, or somebody that, the exact person I've been talking about, if I can get one of these people to listen, or to at least say, you know what, man, I'm going to just try and be better. That's all I want. Just talk and go. The world today is just, there's quite a bit going on, and I'm going to kind of group a few of the things together into one topic. And my topic is kind of twofold. I don't understand why so many Americans hate this idea of putting the United States first, which is exactly what the new administration is doing. It's scaring a lot of people. They use the word scare. All it's doing is it's just new. It's out of the blue, but it needs to happen. It's a good thing in many of our opinions. And for those that don't, and for those that don't like it and are uncomfortable with it, I'm just simply asking, why are you so against this idea of putting the United States first? The second part to that is, the rest of the world. Why don't they understand that we want to put ourselves first? Why? I mean, is there another country out there that doesn't want to put themselves first? And if so, I would question that leadership as well, if I was a citizen of one of those countries. And so that combined, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. People say the world is laughing at the United States. No, they're not. The world may be upset and annoyed because we aren't bending over anymore. The world may be turning up their nose to the idea of somebody that's finally saying, we're not footing the bill. Why is it up to the United States to do all of these things? Why is it up to the United States with the Paris Accord, with the climate research? Why is it up to the U.S. to pay so much money and the top two polluters aren't paying anything? That's just one example, but I like to back up what I'm saying with some sort of substance. So let's ruffle some feathers, shall we? The main example I'm going to give you today of what I just said is what I call the Zelensky problem. And it has become a problem. When this first happened a couple of years back in 2022, I say this, when Russia invaded Ukraine. I'm not saying they didn't. I'm also not a Putin supporter, which I'll get to. It seems that if I question Vladimir Zelensky, that all of a sudden I've become this Russian sympathizer and I'm backing them in the war. This bipartisan mindset is why we're here where we are. Not everything has this side and that side. I'm sitting here calling both of those assholes out, but Vladimir Putin isn't taking all of our tax money. He doesn't need it. So this is what I'm going to go into with Zelensky. The United States doesn't want to pay for this war anymore. And that's what we're doing. If we continue to give aid and billions to Ukraine, we're funding a war that we don't need, and one that it's endless. It's not going to stop. My question is, why does Zelensky want to continue this war? He had an opportunity to sign a peace treaty between Putin and then having Donald Trump and the United States involved. There's a mineral deal that he had that could have signed. He could have signed, and it's just I have my opinions on why Zelensky is hesitant. He's claiming it's because he wasn't involved in the discussion. Well, we don't need you anymore, dude. You're powerless in this case. You're dependent on money and funding from the United States and from NATO and from the European Union. Russia is not. Guess who we need to stop? You keep saying Russia is the one that needs to stop the aggression. Okay, well, we're going to Russia. We're going to go talk to them. You just stay over here. You've done enough or not enough. But that's my problem, which leads me to what happened. We all know, if anybody's been paying attention, then everybody knows the lovely discussion, for lack of a better word, that happened in the Oval Office between our president and Vice President Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and President of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky. This guy, Zelensky, walked into the Oval Office, and it's all right there. Everything, there's no denying what I'm going to tell you. It's all fact. But in my opinion, the opinion part of it is that he walked in with a little bit of a strut saying, me, give me more money, like he was owed something by the United States. He is not owed something by the United States. But before we get into it, I'm going to show you a video. And basically, this is the first time that Zelensky's been told no. And he didn't like it. And so he started spouting off. I'm going to play this little clip of the meeting, and we'll go from there. But this is basically kind of when it starts getting heated is when Zelensky, in my opinion, this is where you kind of see Trump hit a switch after J.D. Vance has already done some talking. So check this out.
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
that.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on
position
this
to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this.
I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position.
I
You don't
was
have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not
cards.
playing cards.
But right now, you don't.
I'm very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
And there we go. The last part is why I stopped it there. You're gambling with World War III. That's my opinion as well. This is not something that we want to be involved with. This is not something anybody should want to be involved with. When you talk about putting boots down on the ground, I'm looking at you, Great Britain, to aid this. These are acts of war. Do you really want to be involved in this? Do you really want to start a world war? Guess who's going to join Russia? China and North Korea. Do we want this? I mean, that would be the highest of highest when it comes to escalating this thing. But it's not too far off. And guess who's the one person who wants to stop it? Donald Trump. And you're bashing him. Again, Donald Trump is saying, I want the United States to be first on our priority list. Not this war. Definitely not going to send any bodies over there. That would be insane. And everybody's still just like, oh, why are we not supporting Ukraine? But why? I also liked I thought it was funny with Zelensky's like, I don't play cards. I don't know. I thought that was funny. He's just kind of like, didn't know what to say to that. I'm on the side of our president. I'm on the side of our vice president. This was a 40-minute discussion leading up to this point right here where it got a little bit heated for about 3 minutes. People aren't remembering that. When Zelensky, they think they were waiting to ambush him. No. This guy strutted in there thinking he was owed something, and the U.S. said, no, we don't owe you anything. But when he arrived, Trump was there to greet him. Yes, he gave him a little hard time about his sweater. And he said, thanks for dressing up. I think it's funny. It's a sweater. Some people say it's some sort of military regalia. Sure, it might be, but it definitely doesn't look nice. It looks like he's just going over for a Christmas dinner with his family, and he's going to wear that fancy sweater. But anyway, again, 40 minutes previous, he got out of the car. Trump greeted him, had a huge smile on his face. Everything was great until the United States felt disrespected, Trump and Vance. And it wasn't them being babies. Listen to it. Think about what he said. He's saying but we have an ocean, so we don't understand, and we'll feel that wrath if we don't do something. You'll feel that, or else. If you better do this, or else, is what he's saying. And Donald Trump doesn't like that, and he let him know. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't come into the Oval Office of President of the United States and basically say, guess what's going to happen if you don't do this? It just was a bad move. And instead of people, and I say people, I mean the people that didn't vote for Donald, are opposed to what's happening right now. Most of the country is like, hell yeah. Some of them were probably like, well, I wish he would tone it down a little bit, but come on. No, we're not being pushed around by people anymore, especially Zelensky in Ukraine. So let's move on from that. That's the big thing. So let's break down the whole thing. This is my take on the situation over there in Ukraine, and the reason that Zelensky has no cards, as Donald said, in this game. He's got a bad hand. We have sent $177 billion, okay, to Ukraine. And what I'm learning is that a lot of that is spent outside of actually handing him a check or Venmoing him or Zelling him this money. Because he came out and said, well, we only got 77 million of it, a billion of it, excuse me. I still can't believe it's billion, but we only got this much. So where's the rest? That's what Zelensky's saying. First off, $77 billion? And you're not doing better than this? Come on, where is all that money? I'm not going to get into that. Some other people may have some better research abilities than I do on exactly where that money is. Most people will tell you it's because it's counting all of the training and all of the things we do other than the actual financial aid that's going directly to his hands. Regardless, it's a lot, okay? And we could have spent this money on schools, on our homeless veterans, on our homeless. They don't have to be veterans, but the treatment of our veterans disgusts me. I know a lot of them. Natural disasters, all these things that have been happening, and we're questioning where our aid is. Trump and Elon and all these guys are going in there and finding all this frivolous spending. Well, I count Ukraine to that list. We should have been able to give them a good chunk of change, help them out, help train, do whatever to defend themselves against an aggressor. And I'm saying that. I'm not sitting here saying they didn't need to defend themselves. But to what point? And that's what we'll talk about here, because the response I get when I say these things is that we signed a deal. You know what? I'm going to get to that in just a second. But this is a war that we're footing the bill for with no end game, no accountability. This is Zelensky saying, I need more money so that we can fight in the war. Well, Donald Trump's saying, we don't need to fight in the war because I want to shut the war down. And yet he's the bad guy in all this? I don't get it. So anyway, the question is, why does the United States have to keep funding Ukraine and quote unquote defending Ukraine? The argument I'm getting is because of something called the Budapest Memorandum, signed in 1994. It was a deal then to give up Ukraine to give up their nuclear weapons. Okay, so what was this? I have it right here because I didn't feel like memorizing this shit for you guys. It was between the United States, Ukraine, the UK, and Russia in exchange for Ukraine giving up its nuclear weapons. And the signatories pledged to, that would be everybody signing, to respect Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity and not use force or threats against us. Well, obviously, Russia's fucking blown that right up. I get it. Okay, I'm talking about from our end. Ukraine had the third largest nuclear arsenal in the world at the time, after Russia and the United States, and the agreement led to the transfer of its nuclear warheads to Russia. I didn't really research this in 1994. I was too busy being a teenager. But man, why would you do this? Why would you hand it over no matter what the deal said when you're handing it over to Russia? I mean, you've got all these opinions about Russia and its leadership, and I'm not sure about that deal. You got all these nukes and you're just going to hand them over for a handshake. And I know that there was pen to paper, but come on. The promises made to Ukraine were to respect the sovereignty, like I said, its existing borders, refrain from using force or threats, not use economic pressure to influence their politics, and to seek immediate UN Security Council action if Ukraine faced aggression involving nuclear threats. Okay, makes sense. Basically, push back, call out anybody that breaks any of these things. Well, that's what we did. That's what we did. Initially, our citizens think that putting a fucking Ukrainian flag as their profile picture is pushback. Flags around that I see. Whatever. That's a personal decision, and you can do whatever you want. But there was pushback, and it was financial from us. It was helping to defend them as they defended themselves from Russia. But there was nowhere in this did it say that we had any promised military protection at all. People want to say that we do, and we don't. Period. No, the Budapest Memorandum was not a formal defense treaty like NATO's Article 5. It was a political agreement. It did not legally obligate the U.S., the U.K., anybody to send forces or military if the Ukraine was attacked. Nowhere. It did obligate the U.S. and U.K. to protest these violations, which is why the Western nations and the United States responded the way they did. It's simple. So don't come at me and tell me and all these people that have had enough of funding Ukraine, especially when their leader rejects peace treaties. It's beyond me. But don't come at me and tell me that this Budapest Memorandum requires us to defend them physically, because it doesn't. So anyway, obviously Russia violated it, blah, 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 the current relevance and all that. So, but that's the big thing there. And another argument debunked from the people that want to yell at me. So how about this little nugget? There were reports, and this is where you guys are really going to get on me. I already mentioned this, that the billions of dollars, a lot of those billions of dollars might not have actually gone to the war efforts. They went to Zelensky and that regime, but did they go to the war efforts? 100%. A lot of people are saying no, and it's based on different research, different sources, different whistleblowers from within, if you will, and possible money laundering, Swiss bank accounts, lost funds, those claims, and again, Zelensky apologists will say that I'm wrong and that there's no proof, which is fine. I'm not saying that it is. I'm telling you these are things that are being tossed around that could be or could not be true. But there have been a lot of these Ukrainian officials, including Zelensky, seen driving multiple fancy luxury cars and acquiring luxurious villas all over Europe and abroad. These are facts. You can check them. You can find out ownership. You can find documentation on these purchases and on these ownership. Calm down. I've already said my disclaimer that I'm not claiming this to be 100% accurate. I'm just saying to think about it and that we should keep our eyes open when we send anything else anywhere. Anyway, like I mentioned, there's a percentage amount that they send directly to Ukraine. There's a percentage amount that they pay helping them with weapons and training. And then there's 15%, I believe, is spent globally for this war. I'm not sure what that means. What's beyond directly to them and then helping them with weapons and training. I don't know what else that means. But anyway, the bottom line is the United States is waking up a little bit here. I'm seeing a little bit more pushback on the funding to Ukraine, and less of this blind this blind help, this blind aid. I don't want innocent Ukrainian people to die. I don't want their soldiers to die. I also don't want any Russian soldiers or civilians to die. This is a war between two leaders. And a third leader, ours, who some people like and some people hate, are involved. I am not a fan of this war. I'm not a fan of any war. And our president wants to go in there and end it. So I support that. There's no more money that needs to be thrown around. It doesn't. What is he doing with it? What does he need it for? You can't just sit here. You will lose this war if the U.S. says, fine, we'll give you tons of money, but that's it. You're going to lose it. You can only hold off for so long. The other conspiracy theory, and I don't think it's that far-fetched, would be that Zelensky is afraid to have the war end because guess what? He's got to hold elections again or he's going to be called a dictator. He has to hold elections or else he's a dictator. And when that war ends, he has no excuse on delaying these inevitable elections. And I don't think that support in Ukraine is as much as people here believe that it is. And I think he knows that he's out. Just a thought. Do what you will with that thought. But, my issue, of course, like everything else, is as soon as I say these things and as soon as I question anything, as soon as I tell you stories about it, as soon as I give you an opinion other than what the media wants us to do, which is blindly support Ukraine, as soon as I do these things, I am now a Putin supporter. I am now a Russian propagandist. I am now a Russian. I'm a spy, or I'm, sucking on the teat of Vladimir Putin, just like Donald. This is silliness, people. You got to stop. It makes you look stupid. It really does. I am allowed to sit here and say Zelensky's this little douchebag and Putin is an asshole. I can say that they are both. Neither of them are appealing men. And right now, this situation has our tax money going, our interest. All these things are happening, and we're involved. No more. I just can't make out dissect, that's the word. I can't dissect that I either blindly support wasting our money on Ukraine, and I believe at this point it's wasting. Early on, no. Now it's wasting. Unless I do that, that means I'm over here and I'm Russian and I believe in communism and all this bullshit. It's beyond me. If Zelensky wanted peace, he would have signed the deal that's been offered for peace. The first priority is to stop the dying, stop the aggression, stop the killing. That would have done it. Then you deal with everything after that. There were some things in that agreement that, people, there were some things that he didn't like. Well, look, from everything I've read about that agreement, there was nothing in there that was irrational, especially after all the money he's taken. And now he's claiming that these were grants. I never said I'd pay him back. When there's a clip literally of him literally saying he'll pay it back. These are loans. This is credit. Well, dude, you're supposed to pay credit back. But anyway, I'm going to shift gears because that's about all I really wanted to say about the Zelensky stuff. I can say it over and over and over and over again. I'm having a hard time understanding why Americans don't like the idea of the United States first. That's the whole premise of the show, of this episode. And the reason I'm pausing here for effect is because it truly is, it is beyond me. And I'm trying to figure out how to say it smoothly. It's really simple, and I'm not going to try and fancy it up. You have been indoctrinated to hate Donald Trump. Anything this man does is no good to you. He gave an example. He said he could cure a disease, cure cancer, cure all these things, and You'd say that it was no good. Sorry, again, all these old episodes are loud. I use the example that, just because it's kind of funny, I can picture him scooping up these puppies in a river. They're being washed away, and he jumps in and saves them. And it would be too slow, or he did it for a photo op, or, again, this is the kind of rhetoric that comes from his opposition. And I just wish they would tone it down. I believed when Barack Obama and Joe Biden were sworn in as president, I disagreed with all of their policies as passionately as you do. And don't tell me that I didn't. Just because you're kicking and screaming more doesn't mean you're more passionate about it. But I sat back and I said, well, I don't want us to fail. Man, I hope they're right. And I watched. And it didn't go very well. But I watched. I didn't go in every single thing he did, go line up and protest or scream and cry or go on Twitter and start just yelling at everybody. I've been playing defense on Twitter for since the election, and it's not fun. And some people have taken note. They're like, this isn't you. And yes, I'm aggressive and passionate and intense and all those things, but I don't believe in just demeaning somebody and name calling and all these things. You've got to have substance behind it. At the end of the sentence, there may be a dumbass here or there, and I'm trying to work on that because that doesn't do anything. Chances are you probably know it deep down you're a dumbass. So I'm having a hard time understanding why these people are how they could just hate somebody so much. So let's talk about the next thing that is now just the talk of our country and the next divisive topic that Donald Trump has implemented, which is the tariff war. They're calling it a war. If you want to call what Donald's doing a war, be my guest. But here's some information before you do. The main three right now are Canada, Mexico, and China. They're really mad about this. But why? I think it's hilarious. They've been doing this to us for years, for decades. As soon as we do it, we're mean. Donald Trump starting a tariff war with the world. The U.S. is being laughed at with a big bully. Are you sure about that? Go look and see what these countries have tariffed us. Oh, look, I have some right here. And people will say these numbers they're embellished for to support your claim. I've seen different spots where these are embellished, but I've also seen some of these aren't. But even if they're a little bit embellished, they're still tariffs and they're still on us. And all we've done is match them. There is not a tariff implemented that is higher than that country's tariff on us. Why does that bother you? How about milk from Canada, 270%, cheese, 245%, sugar, 265%, eggs, 163%, poultry, 238%. Need I go on? And again, some of these are claims that, well, that 270 is a little high because it's this, and that adds up to about 230. Okay, 230%. How about that? In fact, take off 100% of all that I just listed for you, and it's still high tariffs. This country needs to be independent, self-functioning, which it's totally capable of doing. We don't need you, Canada. We don't need you, China. What have you given us? You give us shitty... We'll talk about that in a second. This is funny. I had to write this down. It says, if you go and you look this up, there are so many sources, so many liberal rags that say most of these tariffs, though, that are placed on the U.S. are in line with the World Health Organization and NAFTA. Who cares? Those groups are absurd. Those deals are terrible. Trump has said as much. He's out of one of them. I'm not sure if he's completely out, but he's always claimed that NAFTA was the worst deal the United States ever signed. So we don't care about that. And I see why. If tariffs against us, and we're not allowed to do it back, is part of NAFTA and part of these other organizations, why the hell are we doing it? So It's just interesting that you can look that up and that's what they're giving you. So again, they're calling this trade war an economic disaster. If matching the tariffs is an economic disaster, sorry, we have to look after the United States. No more handouts, no more taking care of the world, and no more being taken advantage of. This is called fair trade. This is what fair trade is, people. Like I said, I think we need to build here. I think we need to manufacture here. I think we energy independent. We have all the things we need here. And if that means for a little while we don't get from other people, so be it. We are capable of, it's not like we are screwed if we don't trade with all these countries. I just don't see why we're being the nice guy and playing by everybody else's rules. That's not what we need to be doing anymore. And it got out of hand. And finally, you got a guy that's coming in here and saying, no more. I just wish that a lot of you people that hate Donald Trump could see and say, man, I kind of like how he's, and I think some of you do secretly. I'm going to say that, and maybe that pisses you off. But I think that there are a lot of you, as much as you hate that guy, are kind of going, well, I like the way he talked to Zelensky there. Or, oh, Canada actually has tariffs on us? I didn't know that. Maybe it's good that we do this, especially China. How are people defending China's tariffs on us and then chastising ours when we give it back to them? It's hard to believe. But until you prove me wrong, I suppose I have to believe that you're that insane. But anyway, here's an example for you before we move on. You're okay with American dairy products being tariffed by Canada, right? Well, apparently. I'm not talking about my like-minded friends out there. You guys, you get it. I'm talking about the people who are really upset about these tariffs that we're putting on Canada. You're okay with the American product being tariffed. So Trump comes in here and he matches the tariff on those same products, helping out the dairy farmers in our country. How is he a bad guy? I wish I could have a dairy farmer on here and go explain why this is amazing what he's doing for this country. Lastly, I was just mentioning about China. I stopped because I had it all here. China's been slapping tariffs on us for a long time, and no one wants to talk about that. They've been stealing intellectual property for a while. We're kind of talking about that. Some TikTok stuff, some things here and there. Drone sightings, things like that, where China's stealing intellectual property. And they've been dumping cheap goods into this country. Give me a break. You mean to tell me something made in China is really good, high quality? No, and we're still paying for that shit. No, we're not going to take it. Not anymore. And I'm so proud of that. You don't have to like Trump's demeanor. You don't have to like the fact that Elon is doing what he's doing and the way he's doing. The end result is good for this country. So Trump haters, speaking of, somebody like me, I lay out numbers. I show receipts. I break down the logic. I give you an opinion based on so many different resources, so many different discussions that I've had with both sides, both like-minded and people who disagree. Some of them are very intelligent people, and they just maybe, again, are blinded by their hatred for this guy. And I almost wish that Trump could go behind a curtain like the Wizard of Oz. Great, now there'll be some comparison to how horrible they are. And just make these calls, sign these executive orders, do these things without people knowing it was him. Because I guarantee you, if Biden had done half this stuff, it would have been praised by the very same people who are chastising Donald Trump for it. And that's something to think about. And don't tell me I'm wrong. But I mean, we do all that. And again, it's like I said on one of the last episodes about the memes and him being Cheeto and all that. It's like bad orange man and bad this. There's all these nicknames and disrespectful and Cheeto and wow. There's no logic behind it. I just beg you to quit whining about every single decision that he makes. Sit back. It's been not even 2 months. Sit back, Come at me in, 6 months is even a little bit fast. Come at me in a year, but I'll do 6 months. Check back in this summer and just see kind of where we're at. Just see where we're at. Let it happen. It's not good for your blood pressure. It's not good for mine to hear you say it. I need to just laugh. I need to just laugh at you. But I won't. I'll try and continue to talk to you because that's what I do. But I've said it before and you hate when I say it. You said it to me though, the last election. People spoke. We voted for Donald. He's in there. He's doing what we voted for. Nobody regrets the vote. That's some other narrative that's been spewed out. No one regrets this vote. Everybody that voted for him, he was very transparent on what he was going to do. America first. He said it since day one. The United States is first. It's the voice of the people. It's this and this and that. He's distributed power and decision-making to the states. I mentioned that on the last single show I did. He's letting your voice be heard. And most of us, because it's proven by the election, want the same thing. Let's take care of our country. And then we'll talk over here. We're not going to be taken advantage of anymore. We're going to be a country that is powerful and does our own thing and takes care of its people. And where people want to come back here again because of prosperity and because of the American dream. Yes, I want people lined up to come to this country, contrary to what you say when you hear I voted for Trump. I want people to come here the right way. And I think that when this country gets back to where it is, it'll be even more sought after. And it'll attract great people who want to contribute to the society, to be American, and to make it great again, if you will. But if you're unwilling to chill out, go to Canada. Trudeau and the new prime minister pick, which, by the way, they picked him without an election. I thought that was interesting. Go up there, and then you can enjoy all those tariffs they put on the United States for so many years. Thank you for listening to this. I feel like it's another rant, but I just don't understand the this notion that looking after us first is a bad thing. And I think that it's something that if you take anything away from this, you can get on me about my sarcasm and that might have turned you off. I tend to be a sarcastic person, and frankly, I'm kind of just worn out and tired, so I don't really care. But my intent is sincere, which is I want people to understand why so many of us, the majority, are excited about this. We're not bullies. We don't this. We're not racist. We're not this. We're not all these things. We just want to take care of our country and get it to where it needs to be. And we believe this is the way to do it. It's as simple as that. So I'm glad to be back. We're rolling with season 5. I hope you enjoyed Manny and Mitch, the Army combat veterans I had on. And I'm going to have them back because you could just talk about their experiences while deployed and being shot at and blown up. Mitch said, I was blown up 4 times. Jesus. What they eat even. Well, the trust issues in the squads and all those things. It was very interesting. So if you haven't checked it out, go back episode 5-2. And then I plan on doing a lot more of that. I'd like to get out of the politics part of it. I'd like to go back to fun stories and fun news and humanity as a whole and talk about, these hard truths that are kind of spinning around us every day. But man, when Zelensky and Trump start yelling at each other in the Oval Office, you can't not talk about it, right? So stay curious, stay laughing, stay in the grave. Love you guys.